At this time, we're talking with Anika Manzoor. We're talking with candidates. Usually we talk to our talent recruitment professionals, but it's also fun to talk to people who are currently looking for jobs and what that experience has been like. Anika, has it been a long time? This has been a search for you, relatively recent. Kind of give us the context and background of what you're looking for these days.
Yeah, so I led a nonprofit which was my last gig. Unfortunately, we ran out of funding for lots of systemic and personal reasons. And so we ran out of funding back in August. I had a brief 5-week stint working on the election, but aside from that, I've been job hunting. And I'll be totally honest, I haven't been hunting as much as I should, particularly because this job market is particularly bad. I've been working on fumes for the last 5 years, leading my nonprofit, and just getting burnt out and dealing with all the challenges within the nonprofit industrial complex has taken a lot out of me. So I tried to use this period for a bit of rest and relaxation. So I've been sort of job hunting here and there, and thankfully have been getting a decent number of interviews for how little effort I put into. I chalk that up a lot to my network, and that's kind of one of the things that I would really want to stress for other candidates. Just really rely on your network as much as possible rather than just cold applying. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a struggle, but fortunately, I got some money back from my nonprofit. For a period, I am going to be set financially, but depending on, we're still hearing back from other opportunities, and I'm, still hearing back from other jobs. And so if I get another grant, then I'll be back in the saddle and be able to do the work that I've been doing. But if I don't get a bigger grant, then that's when I really have to rev things up and do the 20 applications a week at minimum, which is what's recommended in this current market right now. Yeah, so that's kind of my reality.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'm glad you brought up the leveraging your network piece. I feel like that can mean different things to different folks. I'd love to hear what it means for you. How does that phrase like translate into action?
Yeah, so whenever I've seen a lot of opportunities actually that are at companies and organizations with people that I know. And so whenever I see one of those opportunities, I reach out to someone in my network and see if they're amenable to having a conversation about the opportunity if they know or any sort of insight that they can give. And I always kind of hedge it and say, like, understand if you can't divulge too many details or whatever, but the worst thing that people can say is I can't help you, and that could suck to hear, but it's better than not having an answer. And what I found is that people are generally pretty receptive and try to give as much information as possible.
Yeah. And when you have those conversations, do you use a script of questions? Like, for sure these four things you're going to ask pretty much the same every time, or it's a little bit organic and different for each conversation you're having?
Yeah, it's pretty organic. It really depends on the job opportunity and kind of where I see alignment.
And then when you use that phrase job hunting, that's a good way to put it. And if you do end up kicking into the mode where you're looking at 20 apps per week, do you have a system that you'll use? Is there Google Docs involved, post-it notes and strings attaching everything? Like, how do you think you'll kind of keep it all straight and try to make it the most efficient as possible?
Yeah, so definitely rely a lot on Google Docs. I rely a ton on ChatGPT to craft cover letters because like I said, my burnout is really real. And so it's been really taxing to just even write a cover letter. So I have I'm looking at
Hmm.
three different job types primarily.
Yeah.
One is fundraising and development, one is program management, and one is executive assistant for CEO at a nonprofit. Since I ran a nonprofit at kind of on the smaller end, I feel like I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none as a result. And so I think that's been one of my challenges in terms of trying to find a good fit for me. And so once I started my job hunt and started seeing executive assistant roles, which a lot of people, when they hear that I'm applying for that, they're like, you ran an organization. This seems like kind of a like a demotion. And to me, it's really a lateral move. Sometimes it could even be, depending on the pay, it could even be a step up. But I think at the heart of it is a lateral move because I would be theoretically doing that work at an organization that's a lot more well resourced than mine was. And so, but I actually, that's the job opportunity that I'm most excited about because I'm tired of leading and I want to be a follower.
Yeah,
I want to get work delegated to me.
sure.
Like
Yeah,
I'm in my leadership is overrated era. But if you're up for leadership, please do it because those of us that need to rest need to rest.
you do it for sure. Yeah. And then you mentioned you're in process with a few jobs and places. For what you've experienced so far, have you got to talk to a human pretty quickly in the process? Is there a lot of steps before you get to do that? What have you seen so far?
So, a lot of times, most of the times it's like a non-answer, right? I think that's typical, not just in this market, just in the history of the job hunt. Um, and then if I do hear back, I get an email. Typically, it's like a screening call, and then after the screening call, there might be a panel interview, and then after the panel interview, there's one or two other interviews with the person that you'd be directly working with. And so, I mean, I found that people are, if they're interested in you, you hear back pretty quickly. And if you don't hear back within a week, there's some exceptions to the rule. Like I got notifications from one of like a job hunt. Sorry, we're going with other candidates. I applied like 2 months ago. Like I got the hit.
Yeah.
So, but typically, if you don't hear back, or there was one that I got a couple weeks after I applied that were like, oh, we're interested in, you know, moving forward. I'm like, oh, you're still searching for candidates. Okay, didn't expect that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
typically, it's a week until you figure it's a lost cause.
And then for the interviews that are in person or Zoom in person, how are you preparing for those? What ways have been effective to give you confidence to know
Yeah,
you can navigate what at times can be a stressful experience?
yeah. Again, ChatGPT
Nice.
comes in clutch. Yeah. So I had ChatGPT generate a bunch of questions for this executive assistant role I was applying to. And I did a mock interview with someone at the organization who was not involved with the role, but was just, being just a solid ally. And they gave me feedback, really great feedback. I have ADHD, so it's really hard for me to like I'll either really nail an interview or I'll bomb an interview. There's kind of no in between. So, one of the interview techniques that's off-cited is you should really think about what your answer is, jot some notes down, the STAR interview method, all of that stuff, right? But I'm a verbal processor, so it's really hard for me to do that. So mock interviews give me an opportunity to really
Kind of try
practice
out
thinking.
pilot some things.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would really recommend for anyone else in this journey to reach out to anyone and everyone. If you know other folks that are also job hunting, just create like a circle of support and you can practice mock interviews that way. And then in my interview, a lot of the questions that they ended up asking were exactly the questions that I prepared for.
Nailed it. Good job, ChatGPT and you. Hey, last thing you mentioned, and it makes perfect sense. Job hunting is an emotional roller coaster and takes a toll emotionally. What advice would you give to folks about how to maintain positive outlook on things, to stay optimistic when oftentimes there's stretches where there's no activity or there's not good news coming your way very frequently?
It's a really good question. I have a creative practice. I do a lot of creative writing, so that's where I pour out a lot of my pain, and it helps a lot. So I would recommend finding ways to nourish yourself that way. Not necessarily the creative writing, but some sort of healing practice. I think also just remembering that you're awesome. The fact of the matter is there's just a lot of awesome people looking for jobs right now, particularly with what's going on in the government. So try to remember that it's not a reflection on you or your skill set. It's just a reflection of a very broken system that isn't making it easy for people to thrive, even those that are highly qualified.
Yeah. Well, for those that are listening and want to offer you a job on the spot based on this awesome podcast conversation we just had, what's the best way for them to get at you or find you and give you things to look at job wise or just to give you moral support? How can they get in touch?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I'm Anika Manzoor on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find me.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll make sure to put that in the info description. And good luck on the job hunt. We're excited to have you back once you land the job. We'd love to hear how things end. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode of At This Time. You can catch all the past episodes. There's more and more every week now. All the places you get your podcasts. And of course, you can catch us in stunning 4K on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Until next time, catch you soon.